Odysseus is remembered as the man clever enough to survive everything: war, storms, monsters, gods, and 10 years of bad luck. But that version of the Odyssey hides a stranger truth. Many of the disasters that keep him from Ithaca are not simply thrown at him. They become catastrophic because of choices he makes after the danger has already appeared. So, which decision cost Odysseus the most? Not which monster was strongest, not which god was cruelest. Which moment of judgment turned a difficult voyage into a disaster? To rank them fairly, we need a standard. Each choice will be judged by lives lost, time lost, avoidable risk, strategic alternatives, damage to the journey home, and the burden shifted onto the people following him. And one distinction matters from the beginning. Not every tragedy around Odysseus is his fault. A ranking of decisions has to preserve the difference between leadership, shared responsibility, and plain bad luck. The Odyssey begins after Troy has fallen. Odysseus has already become a famous commander, but fame is not the same as a safe return. His goal is nostos, homecoming. The poem repeatedly sets that beside another heroic impulse, kleos, the desire to be known, remembered, and praised. That tension explains this ranking. At number 7 is the raid on the Cicones at Ismarus. Odysseus and his men sack the town after leaving Troy. The poem says he urges the crew to leave quickly, while they remain for more plunder and are attacked by reinforcements. So he is not solely responsible for the losses that follow. But he chose to turn a homeward voyage into another military operation. Men die before the return has properly begun. It is the first warning that habits learned in war do not disappear just because the war is over. Number 6 is the decision to enter the Cyclops' cave and wait for its owner. Odysseus's companions want to take supplies and leave. Odysseus stays because he expects the owner to offer the gifts and protection due to a guest. In a world structured by hospitality, that expectation is understandable. But it is also a failure to read the environment. A cave full of food is not automatically a household. A giant enclosure with a boulder-sized door is not a place where a captain should gamble his crew on etiquette. Number 5 is the long delay on Circe's island. Circe first turns several men into pigs. Odysseus rescues them and becomes her guest. The immediate danger ends, yet the crew remains there for a year until the men themselves remind Odysseus that they still have a home. This is not a crime on the scale of later events. It is a leadership failure of another kind. Comfort makes the destination feel less urgent. Number 4 is what Odysseus does not tell his crew before Scylla. Circe warns him that passing the 6-headed monster will cost 6 men, while trying to fight it risks losing everyone. Odysseus chooses the route that saves the ship. Strategically, that is defensible. His worst decision is withholding the warning. The men face the attack without knowing what is happening or why their captain seems prepared for it. 6 companions are lifted from the deck while Odysseus watches, unable to help. The distinction is important. The Odyssey does not demand a captain who can prevent every loss. It asks whether he can carry responsibility honestly when prevention is impossible. Number 3 is the windbag from Aeolus. Aeolus gives Odysseus the winds needed to reach home and ties the dangerous winds inside a bag. Odysseus keeps it close, but as Ithaca comes into sight, he falls asleep. His crew, suspecting treasure, opens it. The text makes the crew responsible for opening the bag. Still, the whole return depends on one exhausted leader guarding an object no one else understands. When the captain alone knows the plan, suspicion has room to grow. One famous disaster must stay outside the ranking: the cattle of Helios. Odysseus warns his men not to touch them. They force the ship to land during bad weather, and while he sleeps, they kill the cattle. Zeus destroys the ship. This is central to the poem, but it is not evidence that every disaster is Odysseus' fault. Leadership is accountability, not magical control. What links the decisions that do belong here is not stupidity. Odysseus is often the most perceptive person in the scene. The problem is that his intelligence gives him confidence in situations where the cost of being wrong is paid by other people. At the Cyclops Cave, curiosity becomes exposure. On Circe's island, relief becomes drift. At Scylla, necessary strategy becomes secrecy. At Aeolus's bag, private knowledge becomes mistrust. These are different mistakes, but they follow one pattern. Odysseus treats control as something he personally possesses, rather than something the crew needs to understand enough to share. This is why the Odyssey is more than a monster journey. It is a study of decision-making under uncertainty. A leader rarely chooses between perfect safety and obvious danger. He chooses between bad options while tired, proud, frightened, or eager to prove himself. The test is not whether he has all the information. It is whether the people around him can survive his blind spots. For number 2, we have to go back to the Trojan War. But there is a source boundary to mark. Homer's Iliad ends before Achilles dies and before Troy falls. The contest for Achilles' armor belongs to later Greek tradition, most famously dramatized in Sophocles' Ajax. It is not an event we can simply attribute to the Iliad itself. In that later tradition, Ajax and Odysseus compete for Achilles' armor. The prize goes to Odysseus. Ajax experiences the judgment as an unbearable public dishonor, turns violently against the Greek leaders in a fit of madness, and then kills himself. Odysseus does not cause every part of that tragedy. Athena's intervention and Ajax's own actions are essential to the story. But the episode exposes a cost that Odysseus's kind of intelligence can create in a coalition. A contest designed to reward merit becomes a contest over status. Odysseus wins the argument. The Greek army loses one of its greatest fighters. By our criteria, it is a major cost in lives, trust, and military capacity. Yet it does not take number 1 because his responsibility is real but contested, and the decision does not directly extend his own voyage home. This late Trojan episode also sharpens the pattern. The problem is not that Odysseus uses persuasion. Persuasion is one of the tools that gets the Greeks through impossible situations. The problem is what happens when winning a contest becomes more important than preserving the people who must live with the result. Number 1 is the choice to reveal his name to Polyphemus. Escape has already succeeded. Odysseus and the surviving men are rowing away. Then Odysseus cannot leave the victory alone. He calls back and declares who blinded him. It is an extraordinary error because it turns a completed escape into a new war. Polyphemus calls on Poseidon, his father, and the homeward route becomes a divine grievance. The decision has no practical benefit for the crew. Its reward is recognition. Odysseus wants the story attached to his name. In the logic of heroic culture, that desire is comprehensible. In the logic of homecoming, it is ruinous. This is the key correction to the ranking. The name reveal and the desire for glory are not two separate mistakes. They are one decision, seen from the outside and inside. The shout is the action. The refusal of anonymous success is its motive. They belong under the same number. If Odysseus stayed silent after the escape, Polyphemus would still lose his eye, and the crew would still carry the losses already suffered. Poseidon might still oppose them, but he would have no named son asking him to punish a named offender. The voyage would not become easy. It would simply lose one of the clearest pressures Odysseus creates for himself. That does not prove Odysseus sails directly to Ithaca. The Odyssey's world is too uncertain for that claim. It establishes something narrower. One avoidable act of self-display removes a major source of pressure from the voyage. The ship may still face weather, hunger, and internal conflict, but it is no longer carrying the consequences of a victory that had already been won. The Trojan armor contest helps us qualify the conclusion. Odysseus can be implicated in a costly decision without being the only cause of its outcome. The Polyphemus reveal is different. There, the danger has passed, the alternative is obvious, and the choice is entirely his. So, which decision cost Odysseus the most? It is telling Polyphemus his name after the escape is already complete. That answer does not make Odysseus a fraud or turn the Odyssey into a story that accidentally chose the wrong hero. Ancient heroism is not a certificate of flawless judgment. The poem gives Odysseus the qualities it most admires: endurance, intelligence, courage under pressure, and the refusal to give up on home. It also lets those same qualities become dangerous when intelligence hardens into confidence and the need for recognition outruns the needs of the people beside him. That is why he remains more compelling than a spotless champion. The journey does not ask us to admire every decision he makes. It asks us to watch a gifted, difficult man learn what survival cannot teach by itself. Getting home is not the same as winning, and being remembered is not the same as being worthy of following. By the end, Odysseus is still a hero in the poem's world, but a hero under examination. His return matters because it is hard-won, morally complicated, and paid for by choices the story refuses to hide. The name he shouts at Polyphemus is therefore the costliest decision, not because it proves he has no heroic qualities, but because it reveals the flaw that keeps putting those qualities at risk. If you want to follow more journeys where familiar stories reveal the choices beneath them, there is another investigation waiting beyond the canon. Until then, Odysseus leaves us with one hard lesson. The road home is not always lost to monsters. Sometimes it is abandoned for the sake of being remembered.